This is Katie from Vintage and Vinyls. I'll be spinning some rockin' 50s records every week here on my channel, as well as showing you some cool Coca-Cola collectibles and other neat vintage finds. Stay tuned! Hey guys, this is Katie with Vintage and Vinyls, back with another great video for you today. In this video, I'm going to be showing off my vintage home, giving you a little bit more in-depth tour than you got in the Show Off Your Bunker collaboration. And I will do my best to try to keep this video short, so if you have not watched the Show Off Your Bunker collaboration, you can go ahead and watch that, and you can get some more details on some of the things I have already shown. So I hope you all are having a great week. Let's jump in. Hey guys, so this is my bedroom that we're in, and all of the pictures on the wall are photographs I have taken from around the world through my travels, and I have some more that are going to go up here that I just got back from the printer. I went to New York at the beginning of the year before all the COVID stuff started, and I have some great pictures to add to my wall. So on the center part of my wall, I have a piece of ceiling that has a lovely hand-sketched dove on it. And there's a really neat story to this. A few years ago, I was in and out of the hospital a lot with some medical issues, and it was a very tough time, and I would go down to the chapel to pray and just to get some peace through all of it. And I saw this dove on the ceiling, and I thought it was just so lovely, and it really symbolized a lot for me. And when I found out that the hospital was going to tear down the chapel, I asked the lady if they would be able to save this chunk of the ceiling for me. Well, lo and behold, they were able to, and I had it framed, and I just think it is so wonderful. So I really love this piece. And then I have these 4 plates. They are by an English potter or plate fine china maker is the word I was trying to say. And these were hanging in my great-grandmother's house. And I have a picture of these plates hanging in the exact same pattern and order above her couch. So I think that they are just wonderful. I'm very happy to have them. They're over 100 years old, and they have this wonderful crazing. I don't know if you guys can see that there, but I just think they're stunning. I love the pattern around the outside with the grapes, and I think I said, but the pattern name is Cries of London, and I have to flip them over to figure out what the maker's mark was. I had looked it up once before, but I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think they're just lovely. This plate has a lot of crazing, so you can probably see that there, but I think that they are spectacular. Now over on this wall, I have my mice, and they are so special and very, very adorable, and I love Shakespeare, and I got to go to his house in London, and I bought these mice there. They're little postcards. I just had them framed, and then my mom gave me this little cute mouse drawing in the center. She bought it in Germany when she was doing a college overseas study program in London and traveled there. And I just think that they are darling. Don't you? How can you not love them? They're so cute. I love mice. And then down here I have a chair. Now I have several of these, and they are from my grandfather's cousin. And I just think that they are delightful. And these are antique. They are well over 100 years old. And I think they are spectacular. And this is the matching footstool. Now, this footstool actually didn't go with the chairs. This belonged to my grandfather's cousin's aunt. So I love, love, love this piece as well. And it's really heavy. It's full cast iron on the base. So that's just spectacular. Now, on my TV stand, I have a glass insulator, of course, because I do love glass insulators. And then I have this really amazing box. And I got it at an antique store because I just fell in love with it, and I couldn't leave it behind. And I think it is spectacular. I don't know what it's for. I haven't been able to find any research. It looks like it's handmade and hand painted. It has like parrots on the outside, and then this beautiful lock on the front, and if you open it up, of course, I store the TV remote and random things in it that I use when I'm getting dressed and all that. But I love this. So if you guys know what this is for, let me know. My best guess is that it's a writing box, and maybe pens would go here, and then you'd put paper in the middle part. But why it's domed, I don't know. So let me know if you guys know. I'd love to find out more information on it. And then I have a little collection here of Crummels, enamelware, some Limoges boxes. I think they're just lovely, and I really love all the different designs on them. And then I have some handmade wooden pieces. This is a bowl, and then a bowl with a lid, and then I have some cigar boxes and my salt lamp, which I really do think helps you sleep better at night. Now, over here I have this vintage table. This table has a maker's mark on the bottom, and for the life of me, I can't remember the name of it. I'd have to crawl under there to find out. But this belonged to my grandmother. It was in her basement for years, and I've always admired it. I love the vintage starbursts and the Greek key pattern, and from my research, this is from the 1950s. So I think it's just lovely. And I have more Limoges and things like that. I have my great-grandfather's glasses with his pocket watch chain, and I think this is his pocket watch. Grandma wasn't really sure, but I really do think that it's his, and it's just lovely. And some pictures, and then of course my prized Underwood typewriter. Now, I said that I would give a little story behind this, and this typewriter belonged to my grandfather, and his secretary actually entered into a typing contest for the whole Midwest, and she ended up winning for the fastest typer on this typewriter. So I think that Grandpa saving this in a storage unit for all those years was amazing, because now I have it and I love the story behind it. And of course, who doesn't love vintage typewriters? Here is some of my antique bottles, vintage and antique bottles. And then I have more of the Crummels and Limoges and some pictures. And then I'll show you guys my bed if you all are all interested. I do woodworking, so of course I made the pallet headboard. And then I've got some more of Coca-Cola prints and an old coffee sack. And then some of my vintage prints that you guys have seen featured in other videos. So let me take you out to the living room. In the hall, I have these vintage lockers that came from a school. I bought them from an architectural salvage yard, and they weren't really sure where exactly they came from. But on the lockers, it says that the metal company was in Arlington Heights, Illinois. So I don't know if that has any meaning to where these possibly might have been. But I love storing things in them. I have like laundry soap and, a little mail station, and just anything that you might need that I use all the time kind of ends up in one of these lockers. And then at the bottom I have some vintage games and things I like to play with my friends. So this is very fun. Up on top I have a 1930s Coca-Cola crate. The yellow ones are older, along with a Coca-Cola in bottles marble giveaway package that was put on top of bottles, and it still has the paper label. It's just amazing. And then I have an older 1940s, 50s Coca-Cola syrup jug. And the story behind this is I got it at an antique store, and the lady told me that it was in Curry Thomas Hardware for years and years and years. Apparently, I guess they did used to have a soda fountain, and they're one of my favorite little local hardware stores, so I think that's a neat story, and I'm very glad to have that syrup jug. And then up top, I've got a Coca-Cola book paper sleeve. This is from the 1940s, and it is really cool. So people would wrap their school books in them, because a lot of times the books were on loan from the school, and in order to protect them and kind of allow the students to customize them without totally like scribbling and vandalizing the outside of the books, they would give away these paper book sleeves, and this one has Coca-Cola, and then it features different dates and history facts on it. So I think that's great. On the wall here, I have Coca-Cola drip bottle sleeves. Now, I'm not exactly sure the dates on all of these, but this one down here I think is from 1940, and the copyright date on this is 1932, and they are very old paper pieces, so I'm gonna have to do some more research on the slogans so that I can figure out the dates. That is one way to date a Coca-Cola piece if you guys don't know, and you can get like Petretti's Guide or any of those books and look them up and find out a little bit more. Now, I'm going to take you into the bathroom because, yes, I do have vintage stuff in the bathroom. And down here, I have more of my bottles and then some pottery and a little green mouse that's kind of special to our family. I'll have to tell you the story about him another day because he's got a great story behind him. Down here, I have my vintage dippity-doo jar that I just keep things in. And then the Fostoria Americana, I think is the pattern, candy jar that belonged to my grandmother. And then some other wonderful little dishes here. And Fostoria, another Fostoria ribbon. I think it's called the ribbon pattern bowl. And I have more vintage Coca-Cola. And on this wall, I have a series of Wedgwood plates, and they are featuring the heart, the diamond, the club, and the spade from like a deck of cards. So I think that's kind of neat to have the whole suite. And then I have some vintage print ads, one for Brill Cream, and then a Coca-Cola ad from, yes, it is amazing, 1922. So that is a really cool piece to have. And then this clock is not one of the old Coca-Cola clocks. It's a newer piece, but until I can get an authentic one from the period, this one is really great in here, and it does go with the colors nicely. So out into my living room, I have more great vintage pieces in there, and I've got my wall, which I showed in the Show Off Your Bunker video, along with my spool table. I have a Chesterfield sofa, and then I didn't show this in the video, but this is a really cool Steelmaster cabinet that came from my grandfather's workshop, and or office, I should say, and it is lovely, and I'm glad that the labels are still on them. I mean, look at this Master Index, and it's got all these labels, tape cassettes, you know, bank deposit slips. This is just great, and I use these up top to store movies, and then I store other things, like I've got incense that I burn and vinyl record stuff down below. So it's just a really handy cabinet to store small things in, and it looks great. Up top, I've got my typewriter tins, which I did a video about that, and then I have more tins here, which I'll do a future video on that, so stay tuned. And I have a lovely little pug dog from Misty over at Thrifter Junker Vintage Hunter. I bought this from her a while ago, and it just looks great here, along with my great-grandfather's pocket seal. He was a notary, and this is his seal, but look at the graphics on that box. Are they not great? It's amazing that it still survived, too. And then here is the lamp I told you guys about. I made from a rotary phone. This is a Bell electric phone, and it is from the 1960s. And one way you can tell is if you unscrew one of the pieces on the phone, so it would be the receiver end, you can find the date usually printed in the metal there. Up top, I have some things here. I have a Fostoria coin, red candy dish with a variety of just little things inside. And then I have some pottery. I got this in London, handmade by a wonderful leather artist, and I think it's just lovely. I love little boxes and things. And then my grandfather owned a radio station. My great-grandfather did, and then my grandfather worked there and took it over. So this is a little pamphlet from them. For a while they did have the world's tallest structure, and then I think the Empire State Building was Empire State that beat it out. Something beat it out, but it's an amazing little book. And then up top, I have a Coca-Cola medicine bottle. Now, I had been wanting to get one of these for a long time, but they're so expensive, and then recently the market prices dropped. I guess people have been finding more of them, so it is just so cool. And my little Coca-Cola bottle, keychain bottle, and I've got a piece from Murano, Italy. It's, their Murano glass, and then more Murano glass. It's a pen, a fountain pen, and then a lovely hand-painted drawing of the St. Augustine carousel. And here I have more things from my travels. I got this little mouse in Covent Garden, and my mom brought back this kaleidoscope when I was a little kid from Vietnam, and I have loved it ever since. It's brass, and it is so magical, so I'm glad to have that in my home now. And I have a little miniature Coca-Cola bottle. And then this is an advertising piece for a bank. And let's see what it says. The BNRMFG Corporation, New York. And it is a dime catcher. So what you do is you put your dimes in there. And then this little, let's see if I can show you. This little lever pulls up, and you can get your dimes out. But I think that that's a really neat little find that I got at a little local flea market. I love it. Now over here, you have seen my Coca-Cola pictures and my ceiling tile, and then I have my record player with all these wonderful 1950s records and cool little record goodies inside. I have my factory lamp. This is from the 1950s, and it is a gooseneck lamp, so that means that this part can move, so you can kind of put it wherever you want it when you're working. It's like a task lamp, and I think it looks really great in here. Again, I love all things industrial. And I have some little ashtrays that were in my grandfather's office at the radio station. They didn't smoke, but I think they got a lot of these for different conventions they went to. I know they got this one at one of the radio television conventions, and then this probably came from London when they traveled there many years ago. And then I have a Coca-Cola brass-colored thermometer. That I think this is from the 1960s, but I can't find a lot of information on it because Coke did make a lot of thermometers, but I do know that it is older. Then over here I have my Coca-Cola cigar band. This doorbell came from my grandparents' house, and when they moved I had to have it because that just, to me, is their house. We'd always go in through the garage door, and they had a little side door into their house, and this was the doorbell on the door, and I just always admired it as a little girl, and now as an adult I have it, and I think it's so special. And then I have my Coca-Cola paper label, some vintage goodies down here, my Coca-Cola metal tine that would go into the street to help kids cross the street safely. That's from 1933. I think it says 33 on the back. I showed it, yeah, 33. That's amazing. And they pulled those up during the war, so if you find one of those, there aren't a lot of them left because they did use them for metal. So that is a very special piece to have. And then I have my soda water bottle here, which I love. And then the industrial lamp I made using this vintage magnifying glass and a cigar box and some black pipe. My Coca-Cola in bottles cooler. That is a Cavalier cooler. It's from the 1950s. And this one is a little bit harder to find because Cavalier mainly did the vending machines for Coca-Cola. So if you find one of these, you've got a special piece. And then I have my standard stamp carousel, which I hope to add some stamps to. Maybe when we can start going back to the thrift stores, I can find something neat to go in there. Now on my vintage printers trays, I have 2 of them. And I've got all kinds of little goodies. These are coins that I've collected from my travels. And this coin here is an advertising piece for, is it Serta or Beauty Rest? It's a Beauty Rest penny, and you would put this under the mattress and you could test it. And it says, better sleep, better health, 1 cent a night. And I love that it's the feather pennies, because I really love those. And it has like a little horseshoe on the bottom. And you just put this under the mattress, and it's the Magic Sleep penny. And I think this was like a mattress test or just some sort of a giveaway. I know that you put it under the mattress, but its purpose, I'm not 100% sure. So that is very cool. I love advertising pieces. You guys know this. I just think that they are amazing. Oh no, we lost the penny. One thing about printers trays that's a little bit hard is you have to get stuff in there just right so that they'll sit, and then taking them out is a little bit of a struggle because you can't get them back in. But I've got some nickel-plated Elite quilting needles that came from my great-grandmother's sewing machine, a Morton Salt pencil topper. Then I have these lovely vintage thimbles. Geez, that's what I was trying to think of. And this one is a Coca-Cola thimble. If that will focus there for you all, you could see it says Coca-Cola in bottles. And then I have, this is, yes, the Prudential Life Insurance Company. All of these, except for the Coca-Cola one, came out of the 1916 Red Eye Singer sewing machine that I have from my grandma. And then this says, a good rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And on the back, it says Coca-Cola Company. So that's a very cool piece. I have my antique medicine bottles that belong to my great-grandfather's cousin's husband, who is a pharmacist. And I have my lovely insulators. And then I have a vintage, it's like the Seal Master, but it's a drawer storage system for like a workshop. And on the inside, there's still nails and keys and all kinds of cool things kind of rusted to the bottom. So I love that. I don't want to clean it. I just think that it's great the way that it is. Then I have a 1950s Coca-Cola little bottle crate. You know, the bottles and the crates and the yellow crate, which I think is great. And some vintage, well, these are antique typewriter tins. And then I have the Listerine bottle there. Up top here, I've got a lovely chessboard. Now, this chessboard came from Vietnam. My mom brought it back. But what's really special is inside, the pieces are all hand turned by my grandfather, who made these all on the lathe when he was in high school. Each one's different, and some of them even have little weights, or they have holes for weights where he was going to put weights in the bottom. And this is the note about it from my grandma. But I was so happy to get this for Christmas one year, because my grandfather taught me everything I know about woodworking, and he got me into turning. And so I have a lathe now of my own, and I do a lot of turning and pin making, and that is just so special. Here I've got a antique camera that was my great-grandfather's, and then over here some more goodies. I've got keys and tins, watchmakers tins, a Kodak tin. I'll show all these in another video soon. And then some keys, vintage keys, pens, Coca-Cola ruler that probably came from a school kit, because they did do that. Then my vintage 1930s lathe lamp, on top of an old suitcase, and my Westinghouse fan down there, along with this antique clock. This belonged to my great-grandfather's cousin, so I'm very happy to have that. It's just beautiful. They really don't make things like they used to. And then my ladder over here, I've got a vintage print ad. I'm waiting for a frame, and I'll show you guys that in an upcoming video. I'm going to be showing you how you can frame your own vintage print ads. And then up top here, I have an architectural blueprint from the Jacksonville Landing. When it closed down, I was able to get this blueprint to remember it by, so I think that's lovely. And then I have Drink Coca-Cola, 1950s soda jar cat. And then a very rare, I should say it's not super rare, but it is harder to find and worth a little bit more, Coca-Cola aluminum 6-pack carrier, because this one has the 25 cents there. Most of them don't, and it does have some of the original paper label. You can see it's product of the Coca-Cola company. And then more great vintage advertisements. And then I have a big copper collection. I love copper decor. Not just decor, like it's just there, but copper vintage items, I should say. And I do use it as decor. And these are all Jello molds, with the exception of I do have a escargot pan and then a berry colander, which I think are spectacular. And I showed these in the last video, but these are vintage, maybe antique actually, candy store scoops. They came from a man that I think his father owned the candy store. Either he or his father owned the candy store, but nonetheless they came from a candy store, so I think that they're very, very cool. And then I've just got some cookbooks and things here. I've got a red berry bowl, I think is what it's called, but it's Anchor Hawking, with some vintage glassware, and then more vintage art. And here I've got an Oaks 1940s egg scale, which is really neat. This one still has the paper label, and you can't beat the graphics on it. And then of course my Morton Salt and Coca-Cola ads. And then this is a antique potato masher that I got. I love to cook, and this belonged to my great-grandmother, and Grandma saved it for me thinking I would enjoy it, and of course I do. And she said she remembers her grandmother using this her mother, my great-grandmother, using this all the time, so that is really neat to have in the kitchen. And then I have some non-vintage copper canisters with just some of my coffee pods. And then over here I have my Cold War era ship lamp from a Navy ship, and I think it's from the glass company, yeah, St. Louis. So very cool piece, along with Coca-Cola and Starbucks art and advertisement. And then my Multi-Mite, 1947 Multi-Mite Substation Circuit Breaker Company sign, and my TMT Tax New York license plate. And then up here I've got my Coca-Cola 1933 Coshocton, Ohio made Coca-Cola sign. And I love this little table. This was in my mom's house for years, and now I have it. And on the bottom here I have this paint can. It's a great advertisement piece for Dean and Barry house paint, but I love the graphics. And then over here I've got more vintage glassware. This is a Fostoria coin glassware piece. It's a vase. And then I have this little not named but vinegar container. This belonged to my great grandmother, and I'm sure she used it as a baby cup for my grandmother, but Grandma says she always remembers it in the sugar, so my guess is that they just reused it, and because it's such a good little piece, they never threw anything away. Now I do have a Planters peanut jar with the peanut finial. I love this piece. And this belonged to my great-grandfather's cousin's husband, who was a pharmacist. And this was his. I don't know if it was in their pharmacy or not, but Mom says it was always on their counter when she was growing up, so they might have taken it from the pharmacy and put it in their house. But I think that's amazing. And it is the older one. I think it's from 1930, if I did my research right. But I think it's just spectacular. Now, the last thing I have to share with you guys is my Coca-Cola wall. I've got different Coca-Cola bottle openers and a Betty Girl tray. And then I have my wall with all of my lovely trays. And Vintage Vinny just sent me this lovely 1912 Elaine Girl tray, which I am just thrilled to death to have. I was really glad to be able to purchase that from him. I think it is spectacular. And then I have my fishtail sign, 1960s, from Misty over at Thrifter Drunker Vintage Hunter. Another great find for my Coca-Cola wall. And I love all of my trays. And then, of course, my 1916 Red Eye Singer sewing machine. And the reason why they called it a red eye, if you don't know, is because these little red designs here look like eyes, and you can see there's a lot of them. So this is the Red Eye Singer sewing machine with the oak cabinet, and it is from 1916, and it belonged to my great-grandmother. And as I've said before, the drawers are still chock full with all of her sewing stuff, so I think that's really neat. And then I've got another industrial gooseneck lamp. I think that this is probably made for like a piano or some sort of choir application, but I just think that it's a nice industrial piece as well. And then my vintage glassware, Fostoria. I don't know the pattern. I do know that this is Fostoria, but I'd have to look back up the pattern. And then my 1940s springless postal scale, which I just adore, and my little vintage glass canisters, and my bowl here, which matches a set that I have from my great-grandmother. And I did realize I forgot to show you guys up above my cabinets. I do have some treasures up here. I've got more of those vintage spice jars, and then some Fostoria glass, and a little etched starburst bowl, and some more milk glass. And then in the center of my island here, I've got more etched glass. This is a Bohemian star pattern, and this is just etched Bohemian grapes, which I love grapes. I just think they're wonderful. And then this is a red, ruby red Anchor Hawking glass, just round bowl, which I just love that has the sticker still on it. Very cool. And then this milk glass here belonged to my great-grandmother. And this plate also belonged to her, this cake plate. And Grandma remembers using this as a kid, or seeing it in her house all the time. So I love, love, love that. And then these shakers Grandma got for her wedding. And then I've got more glass here. This is Avon. I think it's Avon. Yeah, Avon glass. And it's a sugar creamer set. And then I have a matching grape bowl. Well, that is all I have for you guys today. Again, I'm sorry this video was so long, but that is what you get when you watch a home tour. So I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you're having a great week. Please stay in, stay safe, and binge YouTube.